What's up, everybody? This is Fort Collins Fellas, and today we are fortunate enough to have one of my wife's favorite people on the podcast, and somebody who is very, very involved with the community and small business. And for those of you that are thinking about considering moving to Fort Collins, run a small business or an entrepreneur yourself, this is a person that you probably want to get connected with as soon as you got into town, because he's very well connected. I've known him now for probably close to 10 years, if not right around that or even more. And very, very grateful to have his friendship and his mind to run things by, because I think one of the things that you'll notice and enjoy is how just free speaking he is of his mind and his thoughts. Very, very respectful, but also we'll give it to you straight. So today we've got with us Curt Bear of Loco Think. So thanks for joining us, Curt.
Hey, thanks, Patrick. And I remember when we first met, you were doing maybe one of your first entrepreneurial things, and you had like a scooter business thing.
That's right.
And you've just always had that great kind of seeking to serve kind of mindset that an entrepreneur needs. And so can you remind me of that business? Remind me what that was called and stuff.
It was called Designated Scooters. And honestly, we were playing poker last night with or not last night, a couple of weeks ago with a bunch of buddies. And they were talking about, man, I was in Europe and there was this business and they fold up a scooter and put in your truck. I was like, I ran that business here in Fort Collins. And
you were ahead of the times. Way ahead of the time.
I pulled up my YouTube video, and which is like super embarrassing, but I pulled up, it was 12 years ago was the Designated Scooters business.
Okay.
What it was. And, it was quite hilarious. And
I thought you were cool. I thought it was a neat venture. And by the way, I should not forget to mention that Janae is also one of my favorite people in Fort Collins as well. So, and congratulations. Do I understand correctly? You had another little?
Yes. We've got, he's about 2 weeks or a week and a half, almost 2 weeks old. And, knock on wood, he's already doing better than our first two did. Awesome. on sleeping. So
what's the name, date, serial number on him?
Yeah, born March 4th. He was our biggest baby, 7 pounds, 8.5 ounces, which we always had 6-pound babies. And his name is Boone Joshua, Boone, not named after anybody, but Joshua is my brother-in-law, Janae's brother. So some
awesome.
Some sincerity there. But
well, congratulations. I'm sure he's beautiful.
Thank you. Well,
thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. And Chris and I, we've been having fun with this podcast, and we're just trying to live up to the hype of your podcast. Honestly, like we have in Northern Colorado, I don't think have a ton of great options, but I think yours stands head and shoulders above the rest at this point, and has been really fun to listen to. Recently the Recycled Cycles podcast, the one with Aaron Everett, the guys over at Waypoint, and just tons of different people that the value that you're bringing and just conversations that you're having. I think that's one of the things that you talk about is like, we're just gonna have a conversation and see where it goes, which is really kind of fun to watch where that goes. So thank you for bringing that to Fort Collins.
Well, thank you. It's been, it's interesting starting a podcast, and because always in marketing and whatever you're doing, it's so hard to catch people's attention, and you just got to keep doing it. And we're starting to get some good listenership, and it's all about, the amazing people that are willing to share their time with me. It's not like I'm paying them to come and share a couple of hours with me and stuff. And right. I assume I'm not getting paid for this appearance either. Is that right?
Just in smiles and hugs.
We'll discuss that later.
Okay. Yeah. So, so that the Loco Experience podcast is long form conversations with what I think are some of the most interesting and inspiring business leaders in our Northern Colorado community. And so I'm looking forward to listening to more of the Fort Collins Fellas podcast as well. And so I hope we can be podcast friends for a good while.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Hey, Curt, go ahead. Sorry, Patrick. I was just going to say, Curt, like, when I was looking into your podcast, it's in one of the questions I wanted to start. I did a podcast prior to this called Real Estate Ready, and we did about 50 episodes. And, when Patrick and I started doing this, we're like, hey, we don't care how many people listen. We're just going to do it. That you got to be dedicated to it and just commit to it. And I was really curious because I listened to your first podcast, and then I listened to the most recent one, and it kind of seeing it change in the intro and everything like that. But I kind of wanted and I know you mentioned, Joe Rogan experience and how I built this with Guy Raz, which I love, by the way. It's a great podcast if anybody hasn't listened to it. But what inspired you to do this podcast? And congratulations for, keeping it up and doing it for so long as well.
Well, thanks. I actually had a prior podcast that I did with Seth Silvers of Story On, and it was called The Small Business Storytellers. And it was really a short form podcast. But yeah, I only got into podcasting maybe back in 2018. And How I Built This was one of the first ones that I really listened to. And, it always left me hanging a little bit. Like I wanted to know more about these people, not just like the journey and not such a quick show, more like Rogan's show where you really feel like you know somebody and no questions are really off limits. It felt very scripted kind of on the NPR thing, even though Guy Raz is a great host, but I felt like there could be more of the human side of it. And so that was, I'm straight up when I think of where it came from. It's a hybrid of those two things mostly.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great. No, I love it. I mean, yeah, and it's one of those things where when you do it and Patrick, I was thinking about this the other day, how we have our kind of intro music. I was like, oh, we should get a local artist to do our intro music or something like that. And just kind of how, I can see how it evolved and how you come up with ideas as you kind of grow these and it kind of forms organically. But no, I love it. That's great.
That's a Brothers Fountain is the music provider there. Okay. And they are local, AJ and JJ Fountain, and they'll probably share a track with you if you ask them.
Cool. No, I liked it.
No, I think you hit on something right there, Chris, that I was just talking to my two assistants the other day that, I think one thing that a lot of people get held up on is, they try to make things perfect and they don't ever start and aren't consistent with it. And there's nothing wrong with putting something out that I wouldn't say it's crap by any means, because obviously you put your heart and soul into an effort and energy. But, I would say, for your example with Curt's, his podcast, how it's evolved, with me and Living in Fort Collins YouTube channel, watching some of those first videos, it's tough. It's hard to watch some of those videos, but I wouldn't have gotten to where I am now with that channel if I hadn't have gone through those pain points. And it's okay to upgrade, update, and kind of get better as you go. And so that's super respectful that you've just stuck with it, honestly, Curt, because it's tough, when you have 10 people watching your show and you've spent 3 hours doing the recording, some editing,
right. 18 listens a month and a half later.
Exactly. Distribution. And you're just like, oh, ouch. But it's evergreen. I say that's one of the things that I think what I really like about YouTube, Google, and podcasting is it's evergreen. Yeah. You can go, and if you're a new business owner and you can go and you can type in, Loco Think Tank, if they're looking at joining and your podcast will come up, they can start listening to different things. And, they could go down kind of a rabbit hole to get to know you and your company a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, and I hope that's the case. I love having interesting conversations with interesting people. And so that's the nexus of the podcast. And the other benefit is it does, allow us to spread the word about Loco Think Tank and doing it in a way that isn't just in your face. Hey, sign up for Loco Think Tank, because we're not for everybody. And the nice thing is we don't really have to make money off of the podcast, by getting advertisers and getting huge listenerships. If we've already gotten one new facilitator and 2 new facilitators and at least 2 members.
That's huge.
Because somebody they knew was on the podcast and they noticed it and they're like, what's this Loco Think Tank thing anyway? I've never heard of that before, and sign me up.
For sure. Speaking of which, talk to me about that. So your background and kind of was in banking and business. You were very entrepreneurial with your banking, and kind of from there started Loco Think Tank and a couple other of different ventures along the way. But talk to us about kind of where this kind of
how that happened.
Yeah.
Well, you're lucky. I just wrote about this in my blog last month a little bit, is what were those foundations? And so it's pretty fresh, but I was in the fall of 2013. So Loco just turned 8 years old in February, but in the fall of that prior year, I was trying to start a restaurant and I was meeting with landlords and this and that. And I had gotten a new boss that didn't take kindly to me taking bank time to do that kind of stuff. And long story short, I departed and started a banking consulting business, Bear Capital Advisors, LLC. and helped a couple clients find some loans and things like that. But by the spring, and during my banking season, I'd been around people that were in peer advisory, and they ran some of the best businesses that I knew, because they were willing to expose what they were doing to a group of people, gain their experience, share their own, and just make better decisions faster, right? And that's kind of the model that we follow as well. But I couldn't afford the $1,000 a month ticket that those groups usually cost. A lot of them are franchises. Vistage was something I was a member of for a while that the bank paid for. And so I knew about those. I had been in Rotary Club for a few years, service above self. And so I knew that there were these, sometimes retired business owners that were volunteering 10 hours a week at the food bank because they don't really know what else to do, but they don't really want a real job and that kind of thing. And so those factors, I had been trained as a discussion leader, a facilitator early in my Christian walk at Bible Study Fellowship. And that helped me to realize that a good leader of a meeting doesn't have to have all the right answers. I objected to that. And so they taught me how to facilitate. So I had all these tools around me and really just hybridized, again, no fresh ideas, but I took that volunteership and we created a role, what we call the Loco Facilitator, that's a business veteran with a give back mindset. And we make them subcontractors to deliver the goods for a chapter of up to 12 business owners. And so I had a former Vistage chair that had gotten out of it, and she agreed to work just for a flat fee, $500 a month. I charged $150 a month to some of my friends from business, some of my clients from banking, and people I played ping pong with at Old Town Tuesdays, probably when I met you, and just built this first group. And that group really helped me pivot away from the restaurant when I couldn't get a lease. I built a food trailer out, had a food catering business, Bear's Backyard Grill, ran Loco Think Tank on the side, and parked the grill the first winter and was bored, didn't have anything to do. So I started another chapter, and then, it just kind of unfolded from there and kind of eventually started developing some systems and stuff. So anyway, that's a long answer to a short question, but it was just kind of this messy network of influences and connections. And I've always had a kind of a messy network of different kinds of give back stuff, plus small business and all those things. So, and the Matthews House should be mentioned as well, that kind of whole person approach to human services that I was familiar with. And I should mention that I'm holding a special event on April 14th at Sweetheart Winery, a benefit for the Matthews House. And maybe I can send you a link to put that in there or something. But so that was really the fourth foundation, was looking at business owners, not just as the head of the machine, but also as a person that is going to, suffer if they have relationship struggles with their daughter, or a breakup with a partner in their business or things like that. And so we like to say we're 2 parts business, 1 part personal. It's a board meeting and a support group kind of experience, and all managed by these awesome people that don't need a job, but like the role that we've crafted for them.
Curt, have you, has you've been doing this for 8 years now, 2014, you guys started it. Has, and these great minds come together, these business thinkers and entrepreneurs, are there businesses in town right now that were created from these meetings?
Not many created.
Okay.
We're not a startups organization. Our members have started other business and things, but the Small Business Development Center, Larimer County, and some other, even 1 Million Cups and things like that are more suited to startups. We're more of I'm 2 years in and I'm trying to grow from a 2-person business to a 5, or I'm 7 years in and I'm trying to grow from a 15-person to a 30-person business, and those kind of elements. Gotcha. More. So we're a turn good businesses great instead of start great businesses kind of an organization.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, you think think tank, you think where your minds come together, kind of like, we're going to create this. And we had like Ann Hutchinson was our last interview, and learning about the Chamber of Commerce and what role they play in small business. Have you got? Is there any correlation or any integration with like the chamber with yours? Or
yes, Ann and I are good friends. I'm a chamber member, and I've been chasing her for the podcast as well. Good job getting her before I did. But and also I was chasing her as a member. When I saw that she was transitioning to that director position. We don't have a lot of nonprofit members, but we do allow one per chapter kind of thing. And only if it's like a for real business, not like a, hey, we need donations to do this thing. And that, it's a hard line to draw. And that's part of the model is I have to attract really awesome people. And at the same time, not encourage people that other people don't want to be around as much or that don't add something to the special sauce to not sign up. So I'm curating a chapter, co-curating it with my facilitator because they're also there and they're the ones that are in the meetings every month and all that. So yeah.
Well, I know like my cousin, he's kind of got would you consider it kind of similar to like a BNI type group?
No. I like to say we're kind of the anti-BNI.
Okay.
We're not about networking. We're not about growing your business through selling to the people that you meet at Loco Think Tank because you'll develop a conflict of interest that prevents you from being authentic with your group, putting your real problems on the table and all of that. And so instead, we'll help you define the marketing strategy by which you're actually going to get your ideal target customer more. We'll help you hire the person that should be your office manager person and get feedback on what skill sets you're looking for as you try to replace more of the things that you're doing in your business. Gotcha. And so it's more of a mastermind. And so, yeah, we're about business execution, not business connections. But we do have socials and things, and increasingly our members refer other business owners to us and things like that. But
I think
no, we're kind
of
different.
Trust, it's like one of those things. It's like you're not asking for it, but you've built a year or two of trust, and that just comes naturally. So that's probably makes sense.
Right, and maybe I could even tell a quick story about almost what happens in these chapter meetings. I was in my second year of food trucking and working like 6 or 7 days a week, 70 hours probably on the average, And I brought the question to my group because it all starts with the question kind of, should I add this second food trailer that I'd acquired? I had a small trailer I could have added to my big catering wagon and done sidewalk sales and stuff. Should I get that fixed up and licensed and add it to my business so that I can stay open over this winter? And once I put that question on the table, then step 2 is your fellow members ask you clarifying questions for 15 minutes or so before they're allowed to make any suggestions. And so the questions that really I remember were based on, in part, their knowledge of who I was. They've been with me for 16 or 18 months already. And they ask, Curt, you're a social guy. How do you like always working when your friends have time off and always having time off when your friends are working? And you're a creative guy. Now that you've created this awesome menu and brand, and you're probably, second or third place in town in terms of market share and stuff. But now don't you kind of just make the same kind of food over and over again? And
you never thought about.
Yeah. And I was like, shut up, You're
ruining my dream.
I'm focused on succeeding at building this food trailer business into a restaurant, and it's hard to take those truths. And sometimes I tear up when I tell this story. And the last one was, you've always been a community engaged guy, a lot of philanthropic volunteerism, things like that. How do you feel not having any time or money to support those kind of causes anymore? And do you think that'll change if you have 3 food trailers and a restaurant someday? And so based on my answers to those questions, our step 3 is then we fill a whiteboard oftentimes up with suggestions. And the first suggestion out was from Chiba Hut founder, Scott Jennings. Chiba Hut's been a member. His right-hand guy recently took over a lot of that organization. But anyway, he said, Bear, you need to park that freaking food trailer in your backyard and go get a job. And then Todd said, yeah, and get a job that's flexible enough that you can work on Loco Think Tank. Because this is scalable. I had created a second chapter already by that time, and people were getting value from it. We were like literally like 25% of the cost of the competing brands at that point in time. We're closer to a third now, so we've crept up a little bit, but it's still, it still relies on that give back of our facilitators that want to be there, but they don't want to work too hard. We don't ask a lot out of them. We find all the members for them mostly and things like that, do all the credit card processing and a newsletter and a website and all the kind of stuff that would otherwise be kind of challenging to these business leaders. So that's kind of an overview of how we got started and where we've gone, from there is to really segment the memberships into different strata for different tiers of businesses.
So I think that gave me a great insight in what it is. Like that was perfect, Curt. It like because one of the questions I want to ask you is, I mean, you have been around, you're around business owners all the time, and to tie it into Fort Collins and Northern Colorado and everything like that, I mean, Patrick has people moving to town from all around the country. I mean, everybody says it's California. I'm like, no, it's New Jersey, it's Alabama. I mean, they're all coming from all over.
And some of them have online businesses. Some of them have jobs where they get paychecks from Omaha and places. And so that's why I'm bullish on our economy here, even though the rest of the nation is probably going to suffer from the stupid spending and inflation that we've created.
But what do you tell these business owners that come here? So because I want to if somebody's listening to this,
congratulations.
And but is there an approach that you found that works for success in Fort Collins in Northern Colorado, or is it kind of the same, the same sauce no matter where you are?
Well, I think two things. One, I think it's the same sauce no matter where you are. I like to use the word perseverance. That's a combination of perspiration and perseverance. You got to work hard for a long time, whether you're a mortgage lender or a realtor or a small business owner of any stripe, really. So once in a while, we have these rocket ships that just take right off and grow and prosper and whatever, but those are rare. Like even Otterbox was a 30-year overnight success. He likes to say it, right? Yeah. So there's that, being part of the community, having a network, getting involved in at least one or two nonprofit causes where you can meet people, be a part of a Rotary Club, a chamber, be a part of a B&I, that works for some people. To me, it's kind of gross because it's like forced referrals. If you refer a mortgage lender that isn't part of the group, they're going to hunt you down and scold you publicly in the room or something.
Yeah, it's easier to get, like, if you got like a hair business and you'll get clients that'll pay you $20, but if you're going in as a mortgage lender, they're like, I got to send you my whole life story on how much I make and what I owe. And I interviewed for a couple B&I groups and it just wasn't the right fit. And then you almost, those businesses feel like they complete their marketing and business approaches. They rely only on the people in the B&I group.
Right.
And they cut themselves off from other avenues of growth. That was
but thing. My friend Jody is a financial advisor and co-founded one of the B&Is here in town, and half of his book of business is from B&I, and he probably makes, I don't know what, a lot of, well into six figures every year from those connections. And so is it worth his every Wednesday morning for 2 hours? Sure is now,
Yeah.
But again, it's perseverance. You need to be a part of that community and really be a part of that community. And after 12 months, you might start getting some referrals. And after 24 months, you might start getting a few more. And then and it's the same at the Rotary Club, or if you're volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club, or kind of whatever, if you seek to add value first, value comes circling back to you. And so I guess that's the other, perseverance and give first, but also the third bit of advice that I've given the most during my banking career and since is, raise your price. You can't, costs keep going up, and especially in this economy. And so if you're not kind of setting that expectation that you're worth it, sometimes the business people get more customers because they raise the price, because it doesn't look like they're desperately looking for a few people to at least try my product now,
I did that in a golf business. I was a golf pro for years out in Los Angeles at LA Country Club, and it was high end. We had just some very interesting people, a lot of people with money. And I remember I was sitting in a meeting one time. I'm like, we're raising the price. That's 25% more. And the mindset with some of these people that come in there were like, well, if it costs more, it must be better. Right. Like that. Yeah. That shirt's $110. Oh, that's a great shirt. Then I'm going to pay.
Must be really nice. Yep.
It must be really nice. And like that psychology was fascinating. And I remember my director of golf comes up to me, he goes, shit. He's like, we're still selling this. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, the other thing too is we're like a destination. Like they can only get the stuff here, so why not charge them an arm and a leg? Yeah. And but I think that same approach. My wife's in the food blog business, and she's growing her business, but really battling. This is an interesting conversation. Like, where do you put your prices? Because you want to be known as like a high end, or you want to have that quality. But if you go too high, you're gonna push people away.
Well, I think you put your prices where you can be authentically you, right? Like I make less as a salary now with 90 members at Loco Think Tank than I did as a banker 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so, but that's one of my values is I want to be price approachable for the small business owner that's got a $700,000 revenue business or $1 or $2 million business. We don't need $1,000 a month to deliver some really good value for you. We actually do that right now for $300 a month membership, and we're going to be doing a price increase here before shortly. We're working on that kind of communications plan right now, but and we're also going to kind of allow our members to have like a 1-year commitment in front instead of just paying monthly. So price stays the same if you want to pay the whole year, or you're going to get a little bump. Sorry, but inflation, it's Putin's fault. Joe Biden.
You said 90 members, huh? That's pretty impressive. So is that composed basically of 10 groups or right around like 7 or so groups?
Right now it's 9 groups. And we cap them at 12. We've got a couple that are like one's at 6, one's at 8 right now. So those are my kind of working on getting those groups back up to a healthy. We like to be at 10 or so or more. And we've, like I mentioned earlier, we've kind of stratified a bit. So we've got 2 groups for like 5 and fewer employees, typically under $500,000 in revenue. We've got 4 for 3 rather, no 4, no just 3 thinkers for the middle size, kind of up to 25 employees. We've got a catalyst group for key employees, and then 2 what we call next level groups for
tiger groups.
Yeah, more like the tigers. They're running 5, 10, $20 million companies. Again, all diverse industries. That's part of our thing is like when you in one industry, you start to think just like people in that industry think. And so getting outside perspective as well as like insights into your business from outside your doors can really be valuable. So we've got 2 next level groups right now, and soon launching in April, next level catalysts. So the key employees of those larger member groups will have a place where they can, learn how to manage their relationship with the owner and relationship with the rest of the team. A lot of times the owners are trying to increasingly do less in the business, let other people do most of the daily requirements so they can take longer trips and stuff like that.
Speaking of which, do you feel that Loco Think Tank might have had a hand in what has been in the papers quite a bit recently with BizWest and even I think Coloradoans had it, but Da Vinci becoming kind of more of an ESOP? Do you feel that Loco Think Tank had something to say about that?
Well, I'm sure his members did. I haven't been in the room with John there, but John's been a member of Loco Think Tank for a long time. He actually, way back when we started the second group, he was a member, but he was like so much bigger than all of the other members at that time. We didn't have the next level groups that he didn't really find as much value there. And that he was part of the inspiration really for doing the next level. But I am definitely sure that influence from that group and even probably connections with how to do it. I know another now former member is right in John's neighborhood there that won ESOP a year before. So I think he was kind of the inspiration. But, vetting a question like that, you're like, should I do this? Should I sell the company to my employees? And how can I make sure that they don't crash it and burn it? That kind of stuff, right? Yeah. And he'll be involved there for a good while. I think John only works pretty much.
I know, right?
Not only, he works a lot, but then he plays hard too. He takes a lot more trips than I do.
Yeah. No, he's a good guy. Good guy, and I'm sure it was probably pretty fun for he and his members to be kind of a part of that, to see that process. And again, like you said, add value for somebody who had that experience that he could kind of leverage, ask where were the pitfalls, totally. What should I avoid?
Yeah, what attorney should I talk to? Which one should I not talk to?
Absolutely. Yeah. Those types, that's invaluable. And, the typical, or one of the things that I definitely like to talk about is, your net worth is your network. And I think that here in Fort Collins, I'm very fortunate that, been born and raised here, very, family's been around a long time and have a solid network, but it is something that if you're not intentionally building, which I am not, I'm like the worst realtor ever because I do not go like a network. I like do all my marketing is like, I'm very attraction marketing, but like hate networking. I love friendships and like diving into my friendships and relationships, but like you will not find me. had a
You've got three littles, you've got three littles at home. So you're allowed to just be like a YouTube star and spend more time with your kids. You don't need to go to BNI and whatnot.
Yeah. My boss right now, when I got started, I would go to these networking groups and I go, how come you never go to these networking groups? He goes, because the people that go to those aren't doing any business. The people that are, I'm too busy working and making money. I was like, oh, I guess, all right, that makes sense. Yeah. They all want to go there and just chat with everybody. And he goes, pick up the phone, start calling people. And I'm like, okay. And he was right. I mean, there's a bit of that. There's a bit of that where, it is beneficial, but he was like, no, he goes, I just feel like most of those people go for the social aspect and aren't really actually doing the work to grow their business.
Yes. And you need a network, if you're just getting into business and you don't really know people, you pick up the phone and start calling people and you're like, I just became a realtor 6 months ago. Can I have your listing? And they're like, invite me, but if somebody at your networking group that you've become friendly with has a sister-in-law that's moving to town and needs a realtor, they're going to be like, hey, maybe you should try Chris. He's a nice guy. He's in my BNI
what's
chapter.
Funny is no family member I've ever done a single deal for my family members.
Ooh, that actually speaks kind of sad, huh?
Yeah, I know. Well, and when I was thinking about this, I was like, sometimes from the mortgage side of things, they're embarrassed. They don't want you to see their credit score. They don't want to see your finances. And so, when I tell new lenders that are coming into business, I go, don't rely on your family members. I mean, like I'm doing one for my brother-in-law right now in California, but you think that's the easy get from the lending side, but actually, they can be embarrassed they don't want you to see all the, maybe what they do or don't have.
Well, I've got probably three special talents, I think. One of them is I have a special talent to identify special talent, I like to say. The other one that you made me think of just there is that people have forever been surprisingly transparent with me and authentic, and sometimes tell me things that they surprise us both, even when I was a banker and things. And in the podcast format, that's probably because I say things that are like awkward and should be embarrassing, but I don't seem to be embarrassed. So they're like, well, I guess he's opened the table for this kind of conversation.
That's good content. Yeah, that's what people want to hear.
Yeah, no, I like I said, Curt is definitely my wife. We're, we've gone out over to his place for dinner and just really enjoy the conversation. And that's probably the best way you could put it. It's just very authentic. You don't feel like there's any punches pulled or that they're toeing around the line. Curt will be very respectful, understand your point, be happy to have a very open conversation, but then give you exactly what his thoughts and feelings are, and with a smile on his face, and his smile is infectious. So it's not like he's coming at you kind of like a jerk. It's like, no, this is what I feel, and let's talk.
Well, I've taken some shrapnel for some of my blogs the last couple of years and things with being a relatively staunch libertarian in the face of shutdowns and mandates and things like that, and so I've taken some slings and arrows. My staff has encouraged me to try not to take too many. You can be edgy and thought-provoking, but maybe hold your cards just a little bit occasionally.
Well, what was it on one of your recent podcasts? I think it was with Aaron, and you were talking about one of your guests, I think, was like saying you need to get canceled or something. And you're like, no, I'm gonna cancel you. And it was kind of
I shared a T-shirt, like Donald Trump Jr. had a T-shirt that he made up that said guns don't kill people, Alec Baldwin kills people.
Right.
And the guy that was a guest on my podcast, like, respectfully, wrote me and said, hey, I don't really want to be associated with you, and can you please remove my episode from your thing? And I'm not going to say who it was or anything, but I was, at first I said kind of, yeah. And then I thought, no, you can't like ask me to cancel myself. Like, this conversation happened. Like, I'm not going to do that.
What have you learned the most? Like, what have you gotten most out of your podcast, Curt? Like, how many episodes have you done? I mean, I
think we released 53 now.
53. Like, what's your biggest takeaway from it? Like, what's something that you're like, I never thought I was going to get this by doing this podcast?
Well, I don't know. And I should mention actually also my co-creator, Rory Shar, did maybe 25 or so what we call the shorts episodes, more of a Zoom based format. And then Deb did a handful of shorts before we kind of decided we could just stick with the big long format thing. So things I've learned, I think probably one of the things I've learned the most is how refreshing it is to people to like strap on the headphones and be here in a microphone with me and just like be listened to. And like, for the most part, I would say that 2 hours is among their favorite hours of the week or the month for most of my guests. And so that's been a blessing. And I think it is because of that, just a relative scarcity of being listened to. And so maybe that would be my tip to like business people generally, and especially as you're growing a team and things like that, spend so much more time listening than telling, and you'll be a happier manager, spouse, whatever.
Do you ever listen to the Lex Friedman podcast?
I do. I've started listening to that just recently. He's pretty intriguing and gets some amazing guests.
I mean, the interview he did with Elon Musk recently was amazing. But no, his name keeps popping up from like. There's another one with Patrick O'Shaughnessy. He does Invest Like the Best, which is a great podcast just on like finances and stuff like that. But he always references Lex, just how he's an amazing interviewee, but he'll just sit there and listen. Like he won't even, like, you think he's getting ready to respond, and he just sits there and he just lets the guests kind of let their mind go, and then it just kind of goes on this other route and this other rabbit hole. Yeah, it's a great podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
You do a great job about that, Curt. I think like listening to your podcast, you do talk 5-10% of the time, maybe.
Yeah, there's probably stretches where I do 20% or a little more. Sometimes I tell a little story to make sure they know I'm listening, kind of, and stuff. But yeah, probably 80% of the time is them at least.
But I think that's probably a lot too from, like you said, with like your background as a facilitator. You've been able to facilitate, these conversations to free flow, but like also not lead in any type of direction, but just be able to continue down a good topic or pivot to something that might be very interesting to talk about.
Yeah, no, I think that's well, and it's I didn't anticipate venturing here, but last year we were studying Halos Relational Intelligence is a certification that myself and some of my team have done, and I shouldn't try to unfold it here, but basically it's kind of like a DISC or a Myers-Briggs, but Halos is 5 colors, and my colors are white and green as my essence, my archetype. White is the idea person, principles, values, things, but doesn't really like telling people, more likes asking questions. And then the green type is the social relational, that's always wanting to connect with people and listen and understand. So my type is basically like, even in my name of my business, Loco Think Tank is kind of defined. It's local community think tank, and it's thinking and it's community, and that's what we do. And so that, like, learning about yourself, I guess, is something else that I think is probably worthy for anybody moving to the community, however fashion that is, like doing some of those kinds of things. Look me up if you're curious about Halos. It's a Brazilian system, brand new in America, but it's simpler and better than what else you're going to find out there. And so happy to share more, but like my staffer Alma, she's a blue-brown. Blue is organizer, detail, and then brown is like process and systems. And so by going through this training, and she's also 19 now and reserved, and by going through this training, she realized that the things that she has perspective on and understands, I might not, and neither will my other teammate. And so not only is she open to sharing, like her input is welcome, like is what kind of companies a lot of times want to do. Now she knows it's almost essential, because it's going to be a different perspective from a different kind of thinker than who else is in the room. And so that's probably like really listening to understand, but also helping your team understand themselves and what those relational elements are in some fashion. Whatever you do it, whatever system you might engage in. And I have a lot to say about that. But I think I've always said that to build a strong business, it's all about the kind of the tribe that you can gather around you. For your guys' business, it's maybe you and an assistant or two, but also that big network, right? Or those people that find value in your videos, things like that. For some businesses, a plumbing company or something. It's about having a plumbing company job and values and organization that plumbers want to work there instead of the plumbing company down the street. And if you can get those people, you can get more customers a lot of times because you've got the best, happiest people. And that's the long-term route to success, is building teams that like each other and like their roles, like their leadership, like the way that they feel listened to and heard. And I guess that's probably the principle for building those networks. If you don't have a network, help connect people, help first. I introduced somebody just the other day. I met a fellow at a chamber meeting. He's fresh here. He's done like 4 startups and been a awesome fintech consultant in San Francisco area, moved here with all of his brains and a bunch of money, and he wants to get involved. And I introduced him to Allison from the Warehouse Business Accelerator, and they sent a note back that said, "This was great. We're so happy to be connected." And his wife visited and stuff. And I'm like, ooh, that's just yay. I made connections that didn't benefit me at all. But every time I make a connection like that, like that's coming back around. It might be a year, it might be 5.
Yeah,
who knows?
You'll get benefit.
Around and around and around. Yeah, exactly. So
you answered my question from when we first started. I mean, it's like, there's not a secret sauce. There's, people make the businesses, right? And that's exactly, I mean, you can have a great game plan, but if you don't have the support, you don't have people working together, then, it's really hard to succeed, no matter what business it is. And no matter whether it's Fort Collins or Miami, it's the same building blocks.
Right. It's very rare where there's like this asshole boss.
Yeah.
Can you say that in your podcast? Like in an organization,
you can say whatever the fuck you want,
and that company succeeds for a long time. Sometimes a second generation kid will come in or something like that and be the asshole, and the business will slowly deteriorate, probably, or that kind of thing. And that's why I'm not really big into a lot of forced and mandated employment practices and diversity things and college admissions and stuff, is because, like, I think if you're, at least in Colorado, maybe not in Texas, maybe not in Alabama, and so maybe I'm just ignorant, but at least in Colorado, if you're a racist ass, ain't nobody going to go to your store. Ain't nobody going to want to work for you, if you, and so, like, don't fix problems that aren't there. And I think that's where small business really benefits, right? Is because people have so many choices and options. And, when you're golden handcuffed into some corporation that's got you specialized into a very tight role, and your skills only maybe transplant to a few other businesses even, or something, because that's kind of the way they like you, then they can kind of be whatever kind of they want to some extent. You're more trapped, and you have to, your customers and your employees, like, they can all go somewhere else anytime. And so, but if you care for somebody, you should treat them gently, and open hand or warm hug sometimes helps too. So
I was fortunate. Yes, actually, just yesterday had a really good conversation with one of my assistants, and just really kind of transparent, like, how can I help, communicate better so that my expectations are clear, and how, kind of like, I think I'm all about, the kind of extreme personal responsibility side of things, because I think you can always bring it back to yourself. But definitely, I'm very, very vocal about how grateful I am for my team and how amazing they are. And it's kind of fun to hear both of you guys, even at the beginning of this conversation, before we went live, Chris goes, Des is doing great. You're talking very highly about how it's needed that one of your assistants, not just volunteers, but it's almost like imperative that she speaks her mind, because she's bringing a different perspective. But I think when your employees and assistants and coworkers know that you benefit, or that you value and care about them as a person and the relationship, it just makes going to work that much better. And because, I mean, shoot, we're going to be doing 8 hours a day or longer if you're working at Bear's Backyard Grill,
right?
It's something that you better enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, I spend more time with Alma probably than my wife, almost, right, if you don't count sleeping time,
Right.
And so we should enjoy ourselves at work, and that work life, it's not work life balance so much, it's work life integration kind of. I've been blessed. Jill and I took a couple of short trips Jill got COVID at the second one, but we went to Palm Springs, but and I got it from her on the rental car drive back. We listened to 6 episodes of Rogan back to back to back.
Oh, wow.
But we also went to Steamboat in the fall, and we work in the morning and then play in the afternoon. We did color tour with the motorcycle and stuff. And like, that's like, if I can like create and do and stay connected and whatever, and still go do fun things, like that's the kind of lifestyle I'm trying to develop, and I think most of us in a fashion, right?
Definitely. Well, we're kind of coming to an end, but where does Loco Think Tank go from here? Is it growth? It sounds like you're getting another group, kind of the Catalyst Tiger group, for lack of a better phrase, probably trademarked, so sorry. But where is Loco Think Tank going from here?
That's a good question. And I've kind of had a shift of perspective on that lately. I thought a few years ago that we could kind of develop a kit and a marketing communications plan and things like that would allow us to let kind of any facilitator anywhere start a group, and we could do some of the legwork and do the billing and the different things and be a support to that. It's all about relationships though. And I worked hard all last summer trying to launch a group in Boulder. I've worked before to try to launch a group in Cheyenne. It was actually Longmont where my focus was this summer, but Longmont, Boulder. And it didn't work because I don't have relationships with people in those places. And certainly the mask mandates and stuff didn't make it any easier. But I was like, I'm kind of over it, working so hard to not geographically scale. And I've got more demand here anyway, and it's an easier process. We've got brand recognition. So we're going to grow out here for the next, at least this year. Maybe we'll do some more geographic efforts, but my inclination now is to develop more of a license model where somebody in Boulder could be a Curt Bear, and they can serve the semi-retired business achievers in Boulder by bringing them candidates to be members to those groups. And maybe they start with their own group, but they can be kind of a master franchisee or something like that. And we can, serve them in some of the billing and different things probably, but not have to be the one that glues these other groups together. And partly it's because I love Fort Collins first and Northern Colorado. We're basically Windsor, Greeley, Fort Collins, some Berthoud, Wellington businesses in our membership now. And it's hard for me to say I really care as much about Boulder. I want them to prosper. I want them to have more of what we have, but I don't really want to be the guy that brings it there. So I'm, if I get a little bit bigger, I'll have enough juice that I can try to kind of create some kind of franchise or license, document conversations, have some intellectual property protection, and hopefully be famous as a podcaster eventually. And that can be, I can go down to Pueblo and interview the 5 most interesting business people I can find down there. And there you go. That's my contribution to you getting a group started. Maybe I can go down there and be a speaker for an event because I'm Fort Collins famous, but nobody really cares in Pueblo anyway. But who knows where it goes. But that would be my real dream, is being able to tour around Colorado, tour around even a wider region eventually, and do amazing podcasts with super interesting people in my $200,000 Sprinter mini home.
There you go.
All-wheel drive, lifted.
Those things are
solar.
amazing. My brother-in-law has one. Those things are crazy.
With a podcast studio inside.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
So that's the dream. A lot of levers and buttons to push along the way there, but we got time.
Well, Curt, one of our other episodes coming up, we're going to be tackling Fort Collins breweries, Patrick and I, and so we always like to ask: do you have a favorite watering hole here in Fort Collins, or what's maybe like an under the radar brewery that you want to bring up for us?
Well, the last startup loan that I financed was Black Bottle Brewery. Oh. And
Sean Duck. I went to elementary school with Sean. I know
right
him
on.
for 35 years.
He was, I think he was my episode 50 or 49 or something like that. Yeah. So you can give that one a listen.
Yeah.
And so, and he does half price growlers on Sundays and Wednesdays, and nobody else does that shit. So
it's some of the best food of any brewery.
Oh, great food too. Yeah. So they're my go-to. Cool. I've really enjoyed Stodgy Brewing. Just opened up about a mile down the road from my house this year. They've always got a great gluten-free rotation beer on there. And they got, maybe Odell's is better, but the Stodgy Patio is pretty awesome, old school. So that would probably be my second go-to. And Odell's is, the king, and in my opinion, always has the highest quality product. And I want to get Wynn Odell on my podcast. She tentatively said yes about a year ago when I was just launching, and then she was like, I don't know, I'm kind of scared.
That'd be a good one.
She would be awesome. I have a lot of respect for her, and so Odell's gets a share of those spending dollars too.
Awesome. Well, Curt, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll provide contact information. Like we talked about, this is a lot of people that are looking at considering Fort Collins as either their current or future home, and business owners, I think, definitely could benefit from, like you said, the different kind of stratas of where you could offer advice and knowledge and leverage others' experiences. So we'll get all that information down below in the notes section. Okay. And link it to you, but definitely appreciate you taking the time to.
Well, and I'll meet for coffee with anybody. And so even if you're not a business owner, but you've got dreams of it, or if you're just moved to town and you just want a navigator. I know, Patrick, you've been around here forever as well, but I know a lot of the clubs, the nonprofits. I'm happy to just have a coffee with anybody and learn their story and see if I can connect them to somebody that they should meet.
Curt, thanks so much. Great meeting you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Chris, same. Yeah. Thanks, Patrick. It's joy.
All right. Until next time. Take care, guys.
Bye for now.